All right. It is week 4 in the course, and I just finished recording the instructional videos for Monday and for Thursday. And we're actually in the second weekend of the semester. So again, I'm working on having 2 weeks of content forward. So I'm really trying to hold myself to that, and I'm happy to report as of today, again, I'm successful. But there's a couple of things I need to go over, and this is the benefit of actually getting the content done and coming back and doing attendance. And I really notice when I was doing the HTML and CSS, the parts that you're going to cover this week, which, by the way, starting next week, we're going to use probably, I don't know, there's a couple people I'm looking at to use their content for Bootstrap, which, by the way, if you have anybody, if you know Bootstrap and you find some good tutorials, let me know here. Actually, I need to know before that because I have to release. but um, but anyway, the point I was trying to make, and I need to come back to that point, is that when doing that, it was so challenging in my experience because there were so many times I wanted to go deeper with topics, but I knew for this class we really just want to introduce you, and you'll hear me say this more than once in the video, is the idea of wanting, to go into a topic, but I stopped myself because I'm like, no, we're going to go into that in 85. Really, here we just want to have a good introduction to at least the basics of HTML and CSS and how to write HTML, how to look at dev tools, how to write some basic CSS to understand, because next we move into Bootstrap that's going to handle a lot of this, and all we get to do, not all, is learn their classes that we could use to style it. Well, we're even going to get a template so we don't have to worry about that. So it's really just it's layering, right? We're layering here. But when I covered the HTML and CSS this week, at the end of it, I was like, God, I could have done another week here. But I decided that no, enough for now. But if there was a regret I have, is that I didn't talk about values and units. And so what I've done here is I've provided a link to MDN. And this link is probably not it's not one of those easy to read things, right? But really what this builds on is something when we're measuring things in CSS. Because when I was setting up font sizes or doing padding, which you'll learn, we've done some already by the time you got here, I was using pixels, right? And so if you go to this link and you can look at this, you can see if you scroll down, I use pixels, and pixels is part of what we call absolute unit length units, right? And so, which is fine, pixels is very common, but we're really moving away from these absolutes to more relative terms, right? So our relatives ways of measurements. And so, rims and M's are very common, and it's that you base it as a relative size based on some other element in your HTML. And so I just want you to know that kind of going in, because again, I think I would have done it. That would have been the one thing I would have went back and changed. But I thought, well, it's also okay. And then I went over to ChatGPT and I was like, when styling HTML with CSS, right? When do we use M's and Rims versus pixels? And so I got, and you're welcome to use the same prompt to kind of look at it. And it's like, yeah, right? It's still definitely used, right? Depends on your design goals and your scalability of your site. So, and I think, and it gives some examples here, because if we set the font size to like 16, which we didn't even set font size in this one, I did set font family. And then we make the container and a 1.2, then what it basically says is 1, let's say times 1, and if you do 1.2, then that'd be 20% larger if we base it on an EM. And then it talks about how that would be if we instead of using pixels or M, we use rem. So, check that out. I think it's worth at least having a little bit of a knowledge about that. Again, one of those things in hindsight. And then I realized in the, I think it's the Thursday night item at the end where I have you go kind of play and I talk about images. I think I didn't cover, so I want to talk about it here. Just creating an images folder, right? So, and there's many different ways. Like if you went out to Google, and I showed this in the video, and I was to search for boots, right? And I wanted to include a picture of a boot. Of course, for our site, because we're an academic, right? We have a little more copyright leeway than maybe somebody else would, right? But there's also ways when you're looking. Let's see, where's the search? Because there is a way under search to actually look for royalty free. Matter of fact, let's just back out, right? Let's actually go, and this is still on images, right? So let's say royalty free. Oh, there it was. Royalty free images. There's definitely some good sites for that as well. You can even use Bing, of course, to create your own, right? So, I mean, there's just so many different ways to find images out there. Some of these make you, right, log in, or you have to be careful, make sure you're using ones that are not. So there's just so many different ways that you can use images. But the thing I would say, and I have this open here, is create a folder when I have you do this. Sorry, that was a file. Create a folder when I have you do this in the code along called images, okay? And then in your index file, right, where I have you include them, then just reference that. So if I'm not doing this actually here, but if I did image, right? So then the source in this case would be image, right? Now I don't have anything in here yet, so whatever would be listed here, then I would select and then give it an alt, okay? So I didn't show that explicitly, but we've kind of talked about this, so I felt like it was kind of already covered. But the other thing I would say, right, if you were going to use some of these but going back to the Google images, right, the other thing you can do is royalty free as well here. Royalty free images on Google as well has some. Oh yeah, actually they reference some of the other site, clip art, backgrounds, because the other thing, again, cheating a little bit, but I could use my print screen, right? I could use my tool here to take a print screen of it. Remember, what's important here too is file names, right? And some of you have heard me talk about this, like and this is a good thing to think about. Like now for me, it just loaded here, right? So if I was to, oh, you're not seeing this. Sorry, you're not seeing this. Let me drop here for a minute just to show you. Get rid of this just to show you this because it's worth talking about just for a minute. So here's a file, right? Let me get that out of the way. This file, if we were to look at it, right, if I said, and then you could do this in File Manager, right? I could say open with preview. I could do that. And then if I opened in preview and I had it here and I wanted to do anything else to it, because all operating systems come with a default image editor. So if I was to want to put this up in the images directory, I wouldn't keep this name and I might want to end up changing this file as well, right? So I think I've talked about this where you can, all of them have some kind of adjust item, right? So adjust size, I could do that. I could also crop it, right? There's definitely ways I could crop it, meaning maybe I only wanted that much of the image. And you can see here it actually shows me, right? So I could go up to edit and I could do tools. I know there's a crop right there, right? So then I would do a file export. And when I do an export, then I would navigate to that directory where I have I think it's actually not there, it's under Docs, 84. In this case, we're working private, lectures, and then I'm just showing it in demo, right? So here's images. Now here, I would change this file name because right now, that file name is horrible, right? So I would say image, or how about trying to keep it sample. There you go, sample. Now notice what happens here. Now this is on the Mac side. On the Windows side, again, I showed that when I showed it before. Didn't show it well, but I did show it. Okay, so now it's going to save it as sample here, right? And then I can see that show up over here. All right, so, and then I can include it in my page, right? So in here, now when I'm here, I could go / and now it's going to find sample there. Okay, so more than anything, I realized I didn't do a great job of that in that particular one, so I wanted to make sure I covered it here. And then I also realized another mistake, that's what happens when I work on a Saturday sometimes, is that the last item in week 4 I actually didn't talk about, but it's honestly something I really enjoy, which is I have you all watch something called Web 2.0, and I know we did a thing about Web 3, right? But this is kind of what I consider like a classic text. If I had a classic text for this class, this would be it. And it's not a text, it's a video. But I want you to watch it because it's not that long and it became very viral many years back. But it really was very creative. And I think still today we could look at something like this and learn a lot from it, right? So watch the video, maybe a couple times through. Write what it means to you, like in watching it, what came out for you, and then find at least 2 terms you want to know about and research them. And here's the key you'll hear me harping on, right? Don't copy and paste. Don't have chat do it for you. Write write from your perspective, right? In your own words, and provide links and tell us, what you learned from doing the research, right? So in reply there. Okay, so now back to the last thing. So here's one thing I've covered, but I'm not sure everybody has heard me. And so I have a question I want to know if you know the answer to. And I'm not going to give you the answer because I'm kind of curious in the replies who knows the answer. Now, what you may end up doing is looking at somebody else's reply. Not the intent, but okay, if you're learning, you're learning, right? But what's the benefit to working ahead in a class like this? And if we were specific, how much ahead would you have to work to get that benefit? So what's the benefit to working ahead in a class like this? And specifically, how much ahead do you have to work in order to get that benefit? Okay, that's my question for you. Do you know the answer? And then I look forward to your answer. Have a great wherever you're at in Fresno this particular weekend. It was rainy, which is awesome. Totally awesome. All right. See you later.